If you're looking for vintage junk journal ideas, I have them for you. I'm going to show you some of the tricks that I use to get my signature rainbow vintage style. And we're going to be using paint, sandpaper, stitching, and something a little unusual that you might not expect. Here we go, y'all. Well, hello and welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. My name is Melissa and I'm so glad you're here today. We are in week 4 of the My Heart of Thanksgiving journaling event on Instagram and we've been having so much fun. You can see my journal has gotten pretty chunky and I love it. I'm embracing the alligator mouth. I think I need a t-shirt that says that, embracing the alligator mouth. If you don't know what the My Heart of Thanksgiving journaling event is, I will link a kit below. It's a free starter kit in my shop that you can get. Even if you come across this video after we're finished, you're welcome to download that kit and participate. So we're talking about getting a vintagey, junky look in a very colorful journal, but the first thing that I wanted to do was get my prompt card set up, and I've been creating little pockets with these each week, and I'm going to do that this week as well. I'm using a piece of ephemera from my ephemera kit from the Made with Love collection that you see here, and what I've done is instead of printing it on regular paper, I've printed it on transparency paper, and I really love the look of this. It creates an extra layer of depth and dimension on your page. And I like using clear pockets for the prompt cards because then you can see the prompt through your pocket. So I've got this printed out on a piece of transparency and I've laid it down here. Instead of doing a pocket, I decided I would just sew at the top and the bottom to create kind of a belly band effect that I can slide my prompt card in and out of. I'm going to put the tab at the end of the card instead of on top. And then I'm going to make a little mini book with this bread ephemera. And this is one of my favorite pieces of ephemera in the kit, and I noticed that a lot of you made mini books as well, which I thought was so fun because that's actually how I had envisioned it when I made it. For the pages of this book, though, I'm actually going to use some pages from last year's mini book kit because they're just the perfect size, and I've got a video on how I put that together. If you want to see that, I will link it below. And that kit is still in the shop, so if you're interested, you can get that, and you may already have it if you've been joining us every year. So I'm going to take these pages and do something a little different with them than they were originally intended, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So now I've got my transparency sewn to the page and I've made my little pull-out prompt card. I just need to write week 4 on my tab there. And now I'm ready to work on my bread mini book. And what I'm going to do is create kind of a pull-out so that when you pull the bread up, you pull the pages with it, kind of like an accordion book, but not exactly, because it's going to be attached to the page. So I've got all my pages cut out now, and I'm just going to lay these out, and I'm going to be attaching them with washi tape at the seams. But before I do that, I also want to add a little square page at the front and at the back because, as I said before, we're going to be attaching this to the page and I don't want to cover up any of the cute pages that I have there, so I just want to have some plain pattern paper on the two ends, the front and the back end. And so I'm going to get my washi tape and tape those up, and then we're going to accordion fold it and attach it to the bread. So now I have all my pages attached together and I'm just going to do that accordion fold. I'm going to bend it right at the tape, and then the 2 pages that are together, I'm just going to bend it along the mark there where those 2 pages meet. And I usually fold it on the side that I can see first, just so I can get that crease, and then I go back and fold it the other way. And as you see on the back, I printed a pink polka dot paper on the back. So now we have the pretty paper on the front that you can decorate as pages, and then you can also journal on the back. And you've got almost this whole nother little book that you can journal in. You can have private journaling, and it just expands your page so that you have so much more room to write and add things. So now I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive to the back and the front and attaching it to my page, and you can see how cute it looks when you pull it out. And I realized after I did that you can see there it just kind of flops open, so I decided to add some ribbon after the fact. This would be easier to do before you attach it to the page, but you can do it afterwards as well. I'm just going to lay it down. I cut it probably a little too short. I probably should have cut it a little bit longer. So I would say cut it about 10 inches long, 2 pieces 10 inches long or so, and then attach it with some adhesive. And then I tied a ribbon around it. And now it's got a closure that will hold when you turn the page, your book won't just flop open like that. So now I'm going to be using the cover to my Bible Promises mini book as kind of like a page wrap. And the reason that I'm using it for that instead of the cover of my book is because I don't know if you can see that little wax splatter at the bottom there. I was burning a pumpkin spice candle and I went to blow it out and it was very liquidy and it just blew candle wax everywhere. It was right at the top. So I decided I didn't want to use that as the cover of my book, but I could use it as kind of like a page wrap. And if you don't know what page wraps are, they're kind of like tip-ins. And these are the ones that come with the Made with Love collection. And they're a lot of fun. They just tuck in between the pages of your Traveler's Notebook insert or your junk journal. And you just slide them right in and they give you extra space to journal or extra space to create another little page or a pocket. So that's what I want to do. But as you can see, we're at the end of the book, so there's no place to wrap it around because we're already at the end of the book. So I want to show you a little trick in case you want to do something like that and you want to add something at the end of your book like that. I'm using this 2mm elastic and I'm going to measure just about a page and a half worth of elastic and tie it in a knot. And then I'm just going to wrap it around my page wrap or my book cover, my extra insert, and I'm going to take that and slip it over those back pages. And now I'm able to add something in at the back even though I don't have that fold to work with anymore. And this is really nice because then on the back of your book you still have that little bit of extra elastic, so you could add another insert there. Or I got this card, as you can see, it's pie, and I was so excited. I was just like, I have to have that card, and so I can slip that in the back there or put another insert. So okay, the next thing we're going to do is inside my page wrap, I wanted to make some pockets, and I'm using these journaling cards from the Made with Love collection, and I wanted to make pockets out of them. I want to journal a little bit. We're getting towards Thanksgiving here, about my plans for Thanksgiving, and I'm using some tags from the ephemera kit and some flashcards from the flashcard kit, and I'm going to distress them. I almost said stress them. Stress them out. I'm going to distress them with some stitching, and I want to show you a trick for doing that I think looks really fun. So first I'm going to sew my pockets on, and I've done that here. I sewed around 3 sides, and sometimes when you sew a card on as a pocket, it's very tight and it's hard to get things into it. So what I do is I just usually reach in and just kind of stretch the card open a little bit. You want to be real careful that you don't tear your card or your stitches, but just go in really gently and stretch that paper, and then you'll be able to slip things in and out of it really easily. And the next thing that we're going to do is decorate these pieces. And I've stitched on some decorative stitches on the flashcard, and I've stitched some straight stitches on the tag. And so I wanted to show you this distressing trick that I like to do. And basically what we're going to do is take some scissors, and you need some really sharp and thin pointy scissors. Embroidery scissors work well for this, and also Fiskars, the microtip Fiskars that I like to use, work well. And you're going to go in, it works best to do it from the back, and you're just going to snip a bunch of those threads, and then you're going to turn it over on the front and snip some, and then you're going to grab your thread and just pull it, just yank it. And what's going to happen is you're going to tear some of those stitches out, and some of them are going to stay in. Then we're going to take some medium grit sandpaper that you see that I have here, and we're just going to sand the area. We're going to sand the edges, we're going to sand some of those threads, and I've done the same thing here. And it works best if you do most of the cutting on the back, because that's your bobbin thread. That's the thread that's holding the top stitches down. So if you cut a bunch of those and then you pull up one on the front and then just rip, you're going to get this really fun kind of vintagey, junky, looks like it's been sitting in a book for a really long time look. And I think that that is a really fun way to do it when you're working with bright colors and you don't want to use brown as the thing that ages your page. This is another way that you can do that. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the medium grit sandpaper. I'm just going to rough up the edges, take a little bit of that color away, and maybe run over the threads a little bit to give them a rough look. And then I'm just going to take a little bunch of ribbon and staple that on with my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. And I don't know if you noticed this the last few videos, but I actually lost the top to it. Has that happened to anyone else? It just popped right off, but it still works great. It's still my favorite stapler. So, okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to decorate the back of this little insert with one of my slides from the slide kit from the Made with Love collection. And I typed on the bottom a sentiment and I kind of messed it up, and then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to go and print it again and type everything again. I'm just going to leave it just like that. So I wanted to show you how to distress the edges in case you missed my other video about this. You're just going to take your scissors and run them along the edges of the slide, and I like to print this on double-sided matte photo paper to give it a little more weight, not just plain paper. And then I'm going to take the scissors and just run them along on the edges, and this is going to kind of curve up the edges, and it really makes it look like it's real chipboard. So it's a great way to get that distressed look as well. You can do this on regular paper as well as cardstock, on ephemera. That scissor trick works on anything. So then I'm just bending up the corner like that and just giving it kind of a rough look. Now I have another video showing how I create a real slide look using transparencies, and also created a shaker. So if you'd like to see that, I will link that below as well. So now we're going to do something fun. This is something that I like to do with manila, and I'm using the giant manila tags that I have, and it works best with manila just because it's just the exact right weight, but you could also do this with cardstock or regular paper, but manila seems to be the best thing to do. And what I do is I cut out the shape that I want. You can die cut or just cut with scissors like I did here, and you're just going to start to crumple it until you get the amount of wrinkles that you want. And if you want to, you can spritz it with a little bit of water first to soften the paper up and then crumple it. But then you have to wait for it to dry before the next step. And I do not like to wait for things to dry, so I don't ever do that. I just tough it out and crumple it without the water. But you just crumple it until you can see you start to get these really pretty vintagey lines. And then the next thing that I did here was sewed around the edges. So that gives it more of that junky look. And then I'm going to do what's called dry brush painting on it. And it's a really fun technique because the paint is going to get down in those crevices and cracks, and then it's also going to get up on top of some of those crevices, and it just gives it a really fun antique-y look, but with color. So you're just going to dip your foam brush into some acrylic paint, and you're just going to tap it on your shape. And you're just going to tap and brush, tap and brush. The key really is to not use any water for this technique. You just want paint and your dry brush. And then once you're done, you can also crinkle it up like this if you don't mind getting paint all over your hands. And you're just going to get this really pretty, just dry, streaky paint across the top. And that's going to give you another way of using color to get that vintage and junky look. So the next thing that we're going to do is use some paper from my pattern paper pack from the Made with Love collection, and I want to show you a really fun trick, and this is one of my very favorite ones, and I think it's a little unusual. I don't know if you may have tried this before, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm using these wood veneer spoons that I got at Michael's, and we're going to lay these under the paper, and this works best with a paper that has a white inside, white core is what they call it. And we're going to use that medium grit sandpaper, and we're just going to start to gently rub over those spoons. And what's going to happen is we're going to sand away the shape of whatever we're rubbing over. In this case, we're using the spoons. And you just don't want to rub too hard because you can rub a hole in the paper. Although I've used it before like that, it still looks kind of cute. But you want to rub gently and just rub around the outlines of the shape that you are trying to achieve. And when you take it away, you get this really pretty, just junky background that looks really colorful but still has that vintage distressed look to it, and I just love it. And it's really fun to then go around your studio and find things to experiment with. In this case, I've got a button here, and it had a raised lip on it, so I flipped it over on the back and did it again to try to get the holes, and that worked a little bit better. And you can see here that I've got kind of the holes of the shape of the button now. And on the right there under my thumb, I tried a heart shape, and that worked really well. But this was my favorite one that I hadn't tried before, and that was using this crocheted doily. And again, you want to be really gentle, especially with the doily because it's got big holes in it. But you want to be really gentle and slow. I've sped the video up because I took a long time to do this, to get this shape. But then you can see how pretty it is and how you get the shape of the doily shining through your paper. Not shining, what am I trying to say? Distressed through your paper, and it makes such a pretty background. So now I'm just going to layer some paper, and I just wanted to show you, if you want that white to show on the edges when you're tearing paper, you want to tear the paper towards you, and that means that the white will be showing on the piece in your left hand if you're tearing with your right hand. So I'm just layering these pieces up and layering my distressed heart on top of it, and I took it over to the sewing machine and sewed it all together. And because the page wrap has those pockets sewn into it, I didn't want to sew it directly to that and cover up my pocket, so I just sewed that separately and then glued it on. And you can see there my little pin that I pinned into the heart. I think that has a really pretty look to it. And now we are going to do the very last page. And what I wanted to do with this was use my crochet square there as a pocket. I really love doing that. I love crochet. It has so much beautiful texture and depth to it, and I think it's just the perfect pocket in a journal. And I'm just layering some labels on top, and I want to put a giant tag in it. And you remember that last week I showed you my new collection of giant journaling tags. I'm going to be adding to this probably every week because I have so many ideas for these. This one is now in the shop, and I have a new one in the shop, and the new one is called Holiday Kitchen. And it's got all kinds of fun things for your holiday journaling. This is some old recipes from the 60s. I think that the hot turkey salad looks especially delicious. And it's got Thanksgiving and Christmas recipes on it. And it also has a set of tags that have pumpkin recipes. These are some cutlery. There are some really great vintage food pictures. I especially love this yellow plasticky looking butter on the potatoes there. And of course there's pie, gotta be pie. And that's the one that I'm going to use for this last page. So I've got my pocket all sewn in now. And when you sew it on, it takes about 1/4 of an inch on both sides of the page. And because of that, my giant tag is not going to fit in that pocket. I'm going to have to trim it down a little bit. And I think that's fine. It's totally worth it for that pretty crochet pocket. So I'm going to trim it down, and what I'm going to do is just take off about 1/4 of an inch from each side. And normally these tags would fit on a page. They're sized to fit in a standard traveler's notebook, as you can see that. But again, because we've sewn that crochet pocket on, we're just needing to trim it down. So I've done that here. I've taken those edges off, and so it fits nicely in my pocket. But as you can see, I lost my cute little flat edges that make it look like a tag. So I want to show you how to fix that. We're just going to bend the tag in half, and we're going to use another tag to kind of be our template guide, and we're going to line those two up on the corners there, and then we're just going to snip the corner off. And then when I open it back up, you'll see that I've got my little flat edges again. So I just have a little bit thinner of a giant journaling tag. And so then I just want to add some topping on the top. I'm not going to do the tabs that come with it, the reinforcers. I'm going to do that in a different video. I want to show you some ideas for that. But today I'm just going to staple on some ribbon with my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. And I've got that all stapled on, and I'm going to put that in my book. And now my giant journaling tag is ready for some journaling on the back. Well, if you enjoyed this video, then I think you will really enjoy this video. This is all about mini books, pockets, and tags. I have tons of ideas for you in this one, and I will put a link to it at the end of this video and in the description below. As always, I want to thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your likes and your comments, and especially when you share it with people, it means so much to me. Thank you so much for that. I hope that you have a week filled with peace and grace, and I will see you next time here on Pink Paper Peppermints.